let's move to the next session. We have two moderators, one online and one on site. Georgi, thanks. And over to you, and Marie-Alexandra, thank you for being online, helping on this session. Over.
Thank you very much. Very good afternoon, good evening, actually, we should say. This is going to be, fortunately, the last session of today's quite extensive day. I'm Georgi Chaltikyan. I'm professor and head of Digital Health Masters at Deggendorf Institute of Technology in Germany. And it is a great pleasure to co-moderate this session together with Marie-Alexandra, who is going to introduce herself in a few minutes. A session on teaching, essentially, teaching interoperability standards, some interoperability standards. We will be focusing on SNOMED CT and LOINC. And it is especially a pleasure, given that we're just right now going through our exams at Deggendorf in a module that is titled Digital Health Coding, but not coding in the sense that Henrique mentioned earlier, meaning programming, but coding meaning the semantic standards, coding health data. And I'm very happy that, very pleased to say that, yes, we've been doing that for the past, let's say, 10 years. Thanks to the availability of SNOMED International back at the time of ICIDO, and thanks to our school back at the time having been or being an affiliate member of ICIDO even before Germany joined as a member state, and we're very happy with that. Although I have to say that from time to time the browser at ICIDO goes down when all our students at the same time access it. But thankfully we have Rory at our SNOMED tech team in London, who is super helpful mitigating that challenge. And of course, thanks also to the open, being so open and absolutely free for all, LOINC, by Regenstrief, and that is absolutely truly amazing. So it's a great pleasure to introduce our today's panelists. Peter Williams from SNOMED International in London, as well as Marjorie Rallins and Eza Hafeza from Regenstrief, all the way from Illinois. And we, of course, can't help mentioning that we also have Brian Dixon with us here in the room. Hi, hello, Brian. Hello, Peter. Hello, Marjorie. Hello, Eza. It's a great pleasure having you as our panelists. So we have a big team from Regenstrief really joining us, but only one person from SNOMED International. Are you alone? No, you're two also. Oh, I'm very sorry about to hear that. And let me now give the floor to Marie-Alexandra on Teams. Are we okay, guys? Anderson, Simon?
Yes, we are okay. Thank you. I'm hearing you, and I'm there. Thank you very much. I'm Marie-Alexandra. I'm a pathologist from origin, I would say. So SNOMED is my love as a pathologist and my property in some ways, because it was created by pathologists at the start. And now I'm working in Belgium with a consortium of hospitals who have teamed up
Well, technology, as always, right? Technology is always the...
Yeah, technology is always...
Yeah, Marie, you're back. Now we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm mobile, so it's playing tricks. As I was saying, yeah, I'm trying to find a...
Is it the connection on our side, Anderson, or on Marie's side? Okay.
Sorry.
We have Panagiotis online or not yet?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay.
Just go ahead. I think it means I must shut up, and it's a good thing because the panelists have more to say than I have. Go ahead.
Marie, I was hoping you would introduce Panagiotis because you're both online, but it's fine. I can do that myself. I thought I would introduce the people on site in the room, and you would introduce Panagiotis, as he is also online. But do we have Panagiotis now? Is he okay to start with his presentation?
I am online. I don't know if you hear me.
We can hear you.
That's
then if
great.
we can put up the presentation by Panagiotis on the screen. And it is a great pleasure to present our online panelists, Professor Panagiotis Bamidis from University of Thessaloniki.
I share my screen.
And we can all see you, Panagiotis, if you want to go ahead and share your slides if you have any.
On behalf of Scandinavian Airlines and Society of Emission Desert Flights.
Panagiotis?
I'm trying to share. I'm not sure if I have the permission.
The permission?
Trying to share.
Just a second.
I did it.
That's the challenge of hybrid meetings, right? Always something goes wrong or not smooth. Do you do hybrid?
Yes, we see you.
Okay.
Okay. We do a lot of hybrid. All right, we can see the slide now, and Panagiotis, the floor is yours. 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Marjorie Rallins. I'm from the Instituto Universitário de Lisboa in Greece, School of Medicine. So I'm going to share some of these experiences from learning graduate courses of broadcast standards and data classifications. As part of the project, shall I just start by saying that OLAB is one of the largest the universities for it, they are largest, composed of different groups, accounting for 70 or 80 researchers, different projects.
I'm very sorry, Panagiotis. Maybe we could ask you to stop sharing your video because of the to conserve a little bit of bandwidth, and maybe if we could ask you to speak a little bit louder, that would really help.
Is it better now?
And we would like also to ask everybody in the virtual room to mute themselves, please, when you're not speaking. Otherwise, our operators on site would have to mute you. Thank you. Panagiotis, back to you. Sorry.
Okay. So some of the background that we have in the laboratory, some of the infrastructure that assists some of these courses is the living lab. I will not spend much of the time there. And its infrastructure, but it adds technologies and standards that might be needed for recording data and different other facilities that our postgraduate students participate. It is also the neuroscience infrastructure that we borrow for these postgraduate courses. So let me start by sharing this experience. In short, we have been running this MSc in medical informatics for a number of years. We started back in 2004 for this course, the project running the specific course on data classifications. The MSc in Medical Informatics was one of the first courses in Greece, if not the first one, since 1998, which now is replaced by another MSc course. If I can just say that the course that I was designing and running there was called Technologies and Standards for Medical Data and Devices as part of the MSc course. Designed back in 2004, ran until 2023, with the aim to familiarize students with terminologies, provide introductions to different standards in health informatics, and spark discussions, current problems and issues of digital healthcare, etc. And we could benefit from various scientific events, projects, and visits of experts. The content was on terminologies, organizations of processes, patents, ISOs, and then classifications of diseases with ICDs, then ontological classifications focusing on SNOMED, for example, data exchange and interoperability standards for LOINC, HL7, and then going into biotechnology products, medical devices, standards for imaging like DICOM, or other ones like learning standards, Creative Commons, and accessibility standards. That was the original course. Its assessment was based on coursework mostly, most of the times. Current years, it was project-based plus presentation, like a pitching thing, which was now it is now replaced by a course on medical technology standards within the new course MSc in medical engineering and informatics. And still, we follow more or less the same plan with similar learning objectives and runs throughout the semester. This is a physical face-to-face course attended by, I think, more or less 10 to 15 students per cohort every year. Now, the new course that we have is running within an online joint master's course that we have called Management, in which Iscte and University and Laurea are participating. It's the Master of Managing Digital Transformation in the Health Sector. Within this curriculum structure, we do have a course specifically on health data disseminations and exchange formats that you see here in the red arrow. Now, for this course, I am the module leader. It's again, as learning outcomes to familiarize students with more or less these terminologies and get them to know some of the standards, exchange and classification standards, etc. It's split into 4 modules. The first one is introducing people to the data exchange and reuse and medical technology standards, with things like the history, the standardization organizations, and challenges in healthcare, and some future outcomes. The second module focuses on health data classifications and from Laurea and health team. We start with classification and how this could be engaging in different individual backgrounds. And let me focus on this one, which is our effort to establish a coursework as an assignment which will look through a systematic assignment and online discussions, etc. Discourses of students, ask them to produce videos and with different professional backgrounds. I would like to say that we borrow the example of different disciplinarities, backgrounds of the students, build up on this, and so discussions are sparked based on those backgrounds and how data classifications will support secondary use based on these different professional needs. So we'd like to borrow the examples from current research and practice improvement, for example, to go more into health data exchange formats like FHIR and stuff like that, and then the final module is controlled by Henrique Martins on approaches to data reuse and stuff like that. The assessment, as I said, will be based on quizzes in individual nature, but also group work, creative group work assignments with examples of practice on the use of terminologies, but also studying articles, critiquing those articles, making videos, debates about those articles, and perhaps pitching on some of them. See how we will control this because we have a huge cohort of something like 178 students attending this mandatory course on health data classifications and exchange formats. The whole material is based on e-learning, video recordings of some of the material, but also video recordings of experts, as well as online content sessions with debates, topics, minds, etc., as well as project presentations. We borrow the capacity of the event that we organize in Athens every year, the Athens Digital Health Week. It's empowered by different efforts happening now in the European arena, like the European Health Data Space and so forth. One of the examples from IAG with session expert recordings and short videos. We just started the course the last few days, and it's going to run for the first time. We are eager to achieve these learning outcomes, of course, and achieve positive student feedback. But stay tuned, we'll have more to report in a few months' time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Panagiotis, for this description or telling us the story of the program and how it operates. Thanks a lot. I would like to move to our next speakers, and I would like to invite everybody, both on site and online, to basically to prepare their questions, because I would like us to move the questions to the end, towards the panel discussion. So now it's my great pleasure to invite to the stage Marjorie Rallins from Regenstrief, from LOINC, and Eza Hafeza. You want to do all together? All right. And Peter Williams from SNOMED International. All right.
We play together nicely.
Absolutely. I'm all into improvisation. Yeah, I think we have to give applause to our panelists.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marjorie Rallins, and I'm the Executive Director for Health Data Standards at the Regenstrief Institute. It's really, we're happy to be here to talk to you about LOINC, and we understand better now that this session is about talking about the educational needs of what our stakeholders would need. That also includes those of you who are in this room. So what we're going to do is just give you a brief background on LOINC and a brief background on SNOMED. Is that your expectation, Peter? And then we're going to talk about the education needs a little bit. Go ahead, Eza. So I'm going to, Eza Hafeza, who's my colleague, is going to give you a quick overview. I'd like to, if you could move on to the next slide. Yeah, because I need to do the next slide. Oh, there is one? Okay. Okay. We're going to do a very abridged version of LOINC, because this is a presentation that we did yesterday. Okay. So before Eza gives you the high-level overview, I'd like to sort of level set about the terminology related to LOINC and Regenstrief. Often those terms are used interchangeably, and Regenstrief and LOINC are related but different. So LOINC is the terminology, and Regenstrief is the organization that owns LOINC and the intellectual property. Excuse me? Oh. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And a person, right. Yes, so Regenstrief is a research organization that's based in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was started by Sam Regenstrief and his wife Marty in 1969, and it does really wonderful work. We have a number of units. Brian Dixon is the director of the Center for Biomedical Informatics, and I am the executive director for Health Data Standards, and we are the stewards for LOINC. So I wanted to make sure you kind of understand the difference, and let me just give you an example. Someone said to me, is LOINC going to sign another contract with SNOMED? And I said, what you really mean is that Regenstrief and SNOMED International are going to probably work together for quite some time on LOINC and SNOMED CT. So hopefully that gives you some background there. I'm going to turn things over to Eza, and then we'll be back shortly.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Eza Hafeza, and I am the Director of Epidemiology Services and Operations at the Health Data Standards at the Regenstrief Institute. I'm here to give you just a quick overview of the LOINC, or if you would like 101, and a brief history so that we can, I can give the possibilities for my colleagues to start with SNOMED, and we can talk about education fast. So the LOINC, it was created by Dr. Clem McDonald in 1994. There was a need for a universal language for lab observables for clinical care and for hospitals. So he was right there, and he was able to start that start the database. For 1994, he started with the laboratory observations, and in 1996, he did the included the clinical observations. LOINC terminology, it's actually an acronym that stands for LOINC Observation Identifiers, Codes, Names and Codes. The first paper around LOINC, it was published in 1996, and then it became the standard, the gold standard to include lab observables, orders, and to identify clinical measurements. And for example, now it contains radiology and documents and other important concepts related to the lab and clinical reporting. This is the first paper that was published in 1996. LOINC adoption, LOINC is adopted actually across 100 countries. It is also the official standard used in 30 plus countries, and it is translated in 15 variants, 15 languages almost plus. The source for LOINC, where do the concept come from? The important piece to know is that we are looking very much into health equity. It is very important, built on the community need and reach, and to satisfy the social needs, that is, the health related to the social needs. The other source for LOINC are actually the need for the innovation that starts within LOINC. There are a lot of projects of innovation that the team, the whole Regenstrief Institute actually is a part of it. The other source also, it comes from the request for our stakeholders that are nationally and internationally around, and they are in need for lab observables to satisfy their business needs as well. And of course, let's not forget the collaboration of committees, of societies that are in informatics, our programs that are federally and publicly funded. LOINC development, I'm gonna pass very fast through this. It is depending actually on 3 items: our team internal to the Regenstrief, our committees, and to the national and international support from our stakeholders who are very active in that process. Oh, really? It's fine. I'm going to go ahead. So just to give you an idea about the LOINC concept, the LOINC concept, it is actually created of the code that is equal to the name with it is the code with the actual LOINC name. So when you are looking at the name, we have several names in LOINC. We have the long common name, the short name, we have the concatenated name, in addition to display and display name. There are additional more like synonym and related concepts. So the name actually, we depend on 3 big ones. The long common name, this is a human readable concept. The fully specified name, this is actually a concatenation of the 6 basic attributes in LOINC. And the short name, it is the computable readable name. So the 3 of them are a very good and principal pillars. Oh yeah, thank you. I'm trying to depend on my memory. So the 3 are very important pillars to create the name for LOINC, and they are basic for each release, for each concept in LOINC. So when you have the code is assigned actually to the 6 attributes. But is that, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so just to keep the line going, I don't want to take more time. The 6 attributes of LOINCs are the analyte, or the compound, which is the substance that we are measuring over. The second one is property. What are we measuring? The substance concentration, or the mass concentration, or the volume. Also, the third property, or the third attribute, is the point of time in which we are creating, measuring that item. It can be just in point of time, or it can be over a period of time that we specify in the concept. Number 5 is the system. What is it that we are measuring? Is it like we are doing a bone marrow study, or we are measuring any of the body fluid? These are all considered a part of the system. And last, the 6th attribute is the method, and this is optional. And if we have it in the information, it's great. If we don't have it, then we can create the concept with that name. The other important piece also to know about LOINC is that there are 4 domains. We have laboratory LOINC, clinical LOINC, we have the survey, and we have the documents.
There's where you are.
Thank you. Anyway, so just to give an idea, it's okay. The lab LOINC, it covers all the observables that related to any test in the lab. The clinical observables, the high priority one are actually vital signs, blood pressure, and so forth, what is related to that. Documents is very important to the clinical reports that you are getting, for example, related to radiology, related to consulting notes, or any physician visit notes. And finally is the satisfaction of doing attachment. That's for HIPAA and other concerns that we have in LOINC. LOINC is not a standalone terminology by itself. It has connection to other terminology outside, and I highlighted the ones that are really, very active and that we are working on. But prominently, the most important I would like to mention is that we are now mapping. We are working on mapping parts to SNOMED CT term, which is a part of our collaboration with SNOMED. And we are also creating, the LOINC code right now, based on this collaboration, has a SNOMED concept that's exactly one-to-one equivalent to that concept. We are not going to call that the big word mapping. It's actually just the equivalency for what it is LOINC. It is equal to the SNOMED CT. So one important thing about LOINC that I would like to bring it up is that in real life, the way you apply LOINC is that LOINC is the question. Any question you have in mind and you want to code, you use the LOINC code. And the answer, it could be a value of numeric value. It could be a statement that comes from other terminology, but mainly SNOMED. And then other terminology, for example, if you want to represent a drug, it could be an RX norm in the States. If you want to represent, a SNOMED, it can be the virus or the microorganism. It can be a test. So that's very important to this. We call it the question-answer couple. The questions is always LOINC, and the answer is a SNOMED or other terminologies. So I will stop here.
10 minutes, perhaps 10 or 15.
That's
I'll kick off anyway. Perhaps the slides will catch up. Good evening, my name is Peter Groves-Williams. I'm a technical specialist for SNOMED International. And my brief today was to talk about SNOMED CT's support for the format. So if you have a bus to catch or your kids are getting out of school, we could cover this in just 4 bullet points here, which did not translate well from Google Slides into PowerPoint, but perhaps these are all the most important points. First of all, SNOMED CT is a comprehensive, precise, clinically curated. We do not just chuck these terms into a bucket and say anybody can use them. We have clinical reference groups that go along and say what it is that clinicians actually want to use. And we update that very frequently. Something we are going to go into a little detail about today, because it's particularly important for the work that's been done with the format, is how we can do terminology binding with using queries rather than enumerated lists. And the work that we're talking about doing with Regenstrief and LOINC is that LOINC and SNOMED CT are going to become transparently interoperable in the very near future. It's super exciting work. And Something that I've just been able to get confirmation about is that we are loosening the license requirements with non-SNOMED International members, which will allow the free transmission of codes and terms. So this is what we're going to talk about today in 9 minutes. SNOMED International, you can find this in Wikipedia, so I don't need to go through it, but it was formed by an international effort really coming from the College of American Pathologists in the US and the NHS in the UK, and these groups and other 7 countries on top of that decided that terminology is a very time-consuming and expensive thing to do, and so they collaborated and formed IHTSDO, which is quite a mouthful, and we only make SNOMED. That's the only thing we do. So we rebranded as SNOMED International, which everyone finds much easier to talk about. We're a very lean operation. We are funded by, for example, the NHS in the UK or the member states. So we don't have a head office. We all work from home. We switch our servers off at night. We didn't have a Christmas party this year. So we're very much aware that this is public money that we are spending. In terms of this particular topic today, we have an extensive e-learning site, and much of the material there is available without a login. It's far more than I could go into. Please do follow that link in your own time. SNOMED CT, our tagline there, the most comprehensive and precise clinical terminology in the world. I haven't had anyone argue that with me to date. 371,000 active concepts, although many have been inactivated over the years, which I hope speaks to the sort of continuing quality update that we're working on. And we publish that monthly with an average of about 800 new concepts get applied. So we're really ticking over quite fast. And that is the international edition. SNOMED CT is then extended by countries for concepts that are specific to those jurisdictions. And sometimes that's just translations, and sometimes they do a lot of modeling in their own right. This is the breakdown of SNOMED CT. The vast majority is clinical findings, disorders, that sort of thing, followed by procedures. Body structures, that has been worked on. Organisms and substances are sort of supporting hierarchies. The drugs model after that, and the slice of the pie gets smaller after that. The section that we share with LOINC is observable entity, which is near the top of the pie chart. And the SNOMED concepts we have there number about 10,000, and the work that we're doing with LOINC is going to pull over about 35,000. So that section will increase 4 times in value when you put those 2 systems together. I can skip that slide, it gets rather technical, but the point of SNOMED CT, I suppose, is that it was designed to be computable. It's based on some very strong computer science. We run a thing called a classifier, which sorts the hierarchy out. So we just tell the system what the attributes are, and it puts those concepts into their correct place for us. And the modeling is controlled. Again, it's machine readable. There are rules which are published, and there's a website. If you go to our browser, you can see what the machine readable concept model does. And for each of our major hierarchies, we see which attribute types you are allowed to use and what values each one can take. And the granularity is very adaptable. So you can store the most precise term for a patient's particular condition, but then the hierarchy goes all the way up. And if you want to ask population analytics style questions, like show me everybody who has some sort of lung disorder, you can ask questions at that level. SNOMED CT works by our central unit of work as the concept. Each one will have a number of descriptions. We will have a fully specified name, and Regenstrief are using we're sort of our internal terminology is now aligning. We talk about the fully specified name being the thing that is unique. There will only be one copy of that. But then we will also have a preferred term, which is sort of denoted by clinicians. And one of the things you need to watch out for there is if you were to ask AI to do literal translation of your terms into other languages, it's increasingly doing that very well, but that is not necessarily the term that is in use by clinicians in that country. So each country will say what their preferred term is. And that's one of the things that's really going to help us as we go forward with the format and translating documents from one language to another. And each concept is related to other concepts using relationships. The relationship type is a concept, and the target destination is a concept as well. Even the structure of SNOMED itself is described using concepts. So if we release a new reference set, you will be able to compute in real time what that structure is and adapt to it. So we've covered that. Concepts have FSNs, and in each country, perhaps a preferred term and a number of synonyms. And synonyms are not guaranteed to be unique. There was a question that came up on this, that you could see the same text applied between different concepts and between different languages. So really it's the FSN that is guaranteed to be unique, but that isn't what you would display in any sort of user interface. Relationships can be an ISA, that defines a hierarchy, or any other attribute, which is specific to the type of the relationship. We talked about this yesterday. This is real SNOMED Kung Fu. This is black belt level. These are not random numbers. They have some internal structure. And that's an example of a LOINC concept that's been expressed in a SNOMED CT format. And internal in the green there, you can see 101. Reminds me of my digital lecture days. But when we see that, any concept that contains that namespace there, we know that has started its life from Regenstrief. The namespace is owned by the organization. And even if a concept was promoted from some extension into the international edition, the concept would remain and we could say where it had started. SNOMED International took advantage of the fact that we're the source, so we do not use namespaces. Then in the bottom example, that 00 in blue indicates we do not expect to see a namespace, and so we can use a shorter code. But I hope nobody's typing these out by hand, really. You know, the computer should be taking care of this, and the physician should work in whatever language they're comfortable in. So I need to cover expression constraint language because this is one of the most powerful features of SNOMED CT, and there are more symbols than this, but these are the 20% of the symbols get used 90% of the time. So this is what I will use on a day-to-day basis, and it allows me to very quickly specify a set of concepts, saying every concept that is under this one in the hierarchy with some attributes that I will specify. We also have subsets, value sets, as you would call them perhaps in FAR, so we can expand out all the members of those. And there are logical operations for linking those all together. So I could say, for example, show me all disorders of lung, or I could say, show me all disorders of lung which have an associated morphology of an abscess. So the work that we will be doing here is terminology binding. An example of this would be that SNOMED CT is a bit like having a dictionary, and we need to be given some sort of grammar before this can make sense. Limericks are a structure of poem, which I think only exist in English, so I won't go into them, but a famous one starts, there was a young lady from Portugal, and it goes on from there. I'll tell you that later. Another example would be, for example, that it's a bit like having a car chassis and the gearbox. Everyone wants to be the engine, but I think that's a bit unfair to pinch that one. So we'll say that the chassis is the framework, it's the information model that you're working to, and SNOMED CT or LOINC would be the gearbox. And we were talking about synergies earlier, but really neither of those two systems can go anywhere without the other, so they're very much fit hand in glove. So the different types of terminology binding that we do are value binding and type binding. Now in Eza's version earlier, the question would be the type of the data, and if we were using LOINC or SNOMED for the answer, that would be the value binding. And this helps in a number of ways that we can, for example, set up forms where we say what value are we going to show to the user. We never want to show them all of SNOMED. And even we can go even beyond value sets and say, well, I have some more additional context of the particular thing that this clinician is interested in. I could work down with the attributes and say I'm interested in imaging techniques with or without contrast, and I could narrow that down even further. So if we start with a very broad value set, that could be refined further in real time. And this helps with translation, both of the type and the value. There are further use cases beyond that as well. So here's a good example. Now I came across these documents as part of the eHealth PDFs, and Ruth was talking about this morning. I did not get as far as the HL7 FAR IG value sets. So I was very happy to see that that work was being done, because this is a very well solved problem. So we can use ECL, expression constraint language, in that set of values there and say, I'm looking for all types of clinical finding. And that's a very concise format. It was less obvious in the laboratory report that the type of the document was going to be laboratory report, and the code system was given there as LOINC. Now, LOINC do have a code there, and indeed SNOMED CT do as well, but it's not terribly readable, and I wonder if HL7 code systems might be better in that instance, because they just use the name that comes through as their code, so that makes it much more human readable. So we really like to see SNOMED CT used for the thing it does best, for clinical findings, for procedures, for observations, and things that are more administrative. That would not be that's not really our bread and butter. That's not the intellectual property of SNOMED CT. Moving on to the work that we've been doing with Regenstrief, this dates back to 2013 and 2017, where we had an attempt to produce a map to post-coordinated expressions, which was not widely used. It was very difficult to work with, but it did give us a huge step forward when we eventually reconnected in 2022, because we had a map between the parts, the individual attributes that are in LOINC, and that is the hard work, to work out that mapping. Once that mapping is in place, then we can represent LOINC using a SNOMED format, which is really exciting, and that complements a gap in SNOMED CT that we have been unable to we were actually prevented from putting that content in, and rightly so, and that would have been a duplication of work. But now that we can put those two systems together and have them work interchangeably, we come together in a very complete system. And this allows for transparent interoperability, and we've really enjoyed working together as a team on that. And what will happen here is that these 5 or 6 components that are specified in LOINC are mapped into a template, and you can see the FSN, the fully specified name, gets formed as each of those components. We take the preferred term as specified in SNOMED, and that will form a description there. The preferred term, we will use the long common name coming from LOINC, and there will be other descriptions as well. So this is what that will then look like in our authoring system internally, as we have descriptions at the top and some modeling there. And really what this gives LOINC is some structure, because we run this classifier, we have that ontology, and it forms into a hierarchy. And so we start to see a structure that isn't immediately obvious directly from LOINC, but when it gets expressed to SNOMED, we see the SNOMED CT ID and the LOINC identifier right next to it. These two are entirely equivalent. So this is a new concept that gets created from LOINC. LOINC's the driver, it's their product. We just take it and we express it as SNOMED, and it is then a SNOMED extension, which is available on loincsnomed.org. So we see a structure then gets applied, that mass concentration of ferritin becomes a type of mass concentration of protein, and I was happy to find out that ferritin is actually a type of protein, which I was initially confused about, but the relationships that already exist in SNOMED CT allow that structure to form, and then we can see that serum and plasma is a refinement of blood. And as Eza was mentioning, the method is not always present, so in that case there is a LOINC concept which specifies the method, and that is further down, that's an even more specific concept. And this is what I'm really happy to see, is what this looks like when you transmit that as a message in FHIR, where FHIR has the codable concept which allows for dual coding. We're saying that this is exactly the same thing, and you can use either of these identifiers interchangeably. So if you're a SNOMED shop, if that's what you work in, you'd have access to them both. And if you were transmitting that to an entity that only works in LOINC, then they have that identifier available for them, but the choice is there. So that then allows us to use ECL with LOINC and say things like, I've lost my hat on the end of that slide, but I would like to expand out the reference set of LOINC orderables, the things that I'm allowed to order, and I would like to intersect that with all LOINC codes which have a site of blood specimen that relate to blood specimens. And there are other syntactic variants as well. For example, that little dot there in the middle of the bottom line says, I'd like you to reverse that and show me all the different attributes that relate to technique. So we can do some investigation there. So ECL can then be used to define a value set which is both human readable and machine readable. You can change it on the fly so your program can react to what the user is doing and construct that. You don't have to create a value set. It doesn't need to be uploaded. You don't need to maintain it. These values will change over time and in the course of one session. So you can build that up and you will get different answers depending on which version of SNOMED CT you run against. So if you're running in a country, you will see the international concepts and additionally those that relate to that country. And this is an international standard, so it works on any terminology server that supports the FAR API. And you don't have to do map maintenance. Mapping is so difficult. We have a team of 4 or 5 mappers in our organization that are working full time, but we don't have to do mapping anymore for LOINC because they're just going to appear as an extension. And yeah, all that work goes away, which is great. And SNOMED CT has a great format for inactivating concepts and then saying what those should be replaced with. So as SNOMED CT is issued, and in fact, as LOINC is released as well, these value sets will heal and start to show the new terms that have been used in replacement of ones that have been inactivated. Right, the changes to the affiliate license. Am I at time? This is the exciting bit, because it was always the blocker for using SNOMED CT. Oh, you've got to have a license. So that is going away. I invite you to copy the text. I didn't want to paraphrase it. This is literally what I've been cut and pasted from what I've been given. But basically, for the master value catalog, you are free to create value sets and transmit those even to non-SNOMED International member countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Peter. And now let me invite all of you to the podium, to the chairs. I mean, we still have a few minutes. We know that we're now in between the audience and the dinner. I mean, it's not us actually. It's Henrique who is between the audience and the dinner. But we have to. Of course, we started a little bit later, but we want to catch up and to basically to wrap up approximately at the right time. So before we get to questions from the audience, if anyone has a question, please let us know, but just give us a hand. Okay, Anne's going to have a question, of course. And Simon, you're going to be helping me with the online questions. I'm assuming that we also have some questions from our online audience. But before that, I think, Marjorie, you wanted to address the audience, and actually you had a question to us, to XiA Alliance. Is that right?
Since this sort of the basis for this presentation was about education, I thought I would share that, you know, we've been stewarding LOINC since 1994. In 1994, LOINC was novel and new, and our education needs matched that. It was novel and new, it was complex, it could do all kinds of things. And so we needed to teach people about what it was and what it can do. Over time, the number of stakeholders have grown and they've become more diverse. And as such, we need to adjust our education accordingly. Most of our education is didactic, teacher-led, but with all of the different stakeholders and diversity of stakeholders, it needs to be different. I don't know what the opposite Latin word is for it, but it needs to be more learner-centered. And so what we're planning at Regenstrief is to pilot some sort of small test cases, so to speak, to target different audiences to see what people need. We know that there's more need for help with implementation. We heard yesterday there could be a need for some help with analytics, and we're prepared to support that. So hopefully that gives you a background of where we're going.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marjorie. And actually that brings me to, if I may, I exactly wanted to ask the same or very similar question. And why don't we then take it to Peter to answer that on behalf of SNOMED International. For example, one of the key challenges that we're facing in this project is to clearly define the different combination of skills and competencies for different roles. Peter. So my question would be, how do you handle that at SNOMED International? Let's say you have, let's say, foundation course.
Right.
Foundation course can be taken by anyone, whether you're, I mean, a developer who is just getting into SNOMED, or whether you are, let's say, medical doctor or whoever. But then you have some advanced courses.
Exactly. So.
Do you have different sort of this? Do you have this sort of framework? What course is best suited for what audience? How do you handle that at SNOMED International?
Very much. The most difficult thing to do is to become an author, to become a clinical coder, and to create new SNOMED concepts. So that is a tiered approach and takes a number of years. We have much quicker courses for developers where we just talk about the APIs that our developers are used to picking these things up quite quickly. And then there would be another stream for clinicians who are a third party entirely. And that's probably the three different sets that we recognize and deal with. But,
so basically 3 roles.
Yes.
Developers, coders, but not developers, coders in not in the sense of computer, and the clinicians.
Quite right.
So 3 roles. Fantastic. And you guys at Regenstrief, you also have similar roles, or?
Yeah, very similar roles, but what we're seeing now is executive leadership needs to understand why these standards are important. Why do you need to invest people to work with those standards? I would agree with Peter that the most intensive is to become a modeler. Since we're in the context of education, my first job after I wasn't a clinician anymore or stopped practicing medicine was to be a modeler at the College of American Pathologists on SNOMED, SNOMED CT. So I am modeler number 1, and I would say it takes about 3 years to train someone to be proficient in modeling.
Thank you very much. Borrow your microphone, Marjorie, just to hand it to Anne Moon, who has a question.
Thank you. You can take the microphone because it has been addressed. I was curious about the learning resources that is available, and what I hear is that there is some, but not so much that we need for XiA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Back to you.
We do have some. We have, if you go to LOINC.org or LOINC, what is it? It's LOINC.org. But general LOINC training, you go to LOINC.org. If you want to learn about how SNOMED and LOINC are working together, LOINCSNOMED.org. But my point is, each website has background information on SNOMED and LOINC. And we have videos online. I think you might have some self-guided courses as well. But what we're doing now is also holding some focus groups to understand what the LOINC user needs are.
From the SNOMED side, we have a whole team dedicated to the e-learning, upkeep of our e-learning platform. So it's, maybe look to Henrique and just, if you give me someone to contact, put them together, and I'll send an email so that they can talk to each other.
Okay, okay, yeah. Henrique has a question or a comment.
Quick question, benefiting from having Diego from HL7. I know you're not the chair of the education part, but you can take the message home, and SNOMED and LOINC and us. I was just thinking, you know, all of these organizations have a lead education person, right? That is taking care of your educational activities. So I was wondering if you guys are okay to create a sort of a mini committee with XiA, because perhaps that could be the beginning of a very fruitful understanding and collaboration. But you don't have to answer now, but this is just a provocation. So I think if we could put the 5 or 6 main standards, the person that is responsible for the educational initiatives, and we talk to them, and maybe we'll do a workshop with them, and of course our partners, we could learn a lot on how to move forward from this presentation. Because I think these contents are very organization-centric, terminology-centric, preparing our coders. And our challenge now is how do we break those materials into digestible pieces into the other skills, which is to develop the systems and make them use. But so this is my comment and challenge.
Shall we take one question from the online people, sorry, Oti, and then we will give it back to you, because I think we have a question from our online audience, do we?
Yeah, we have a question from Marie-Alexandra. If she can unmute, she can pose the questions, otherwise I will read it.
Yeah, Marie, go ahead.
No, she has connection issues. But it's fine, I can read it for her. This is a question for our Regenstrief colleagues. So she reads, SNOMED International is famous for its free courses, both basic and extended level. Unless I am mistaken, LOINC education is not free. Are you going to propose free education together, since LOINC is the question and SNOMED the answer?
Sorry, so right now we don't charge for education separately. And the question is, will LOINC and SNOMED work together on education formally? And we haven't done that yet, but once we release LOINC ontology, I'm sure something like that will develop.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anderson, if we can give the microphone to Oti, I think she has a question, and probably that's going to be our last question. What do you think, Master? To allow you also a few words to wrap it up.
Thanks. This is very, very important and interesting. I was very practical level. How we could get to see some rehearsal in environment, because I'm from Finland, so we have there the Finnish ones, but now I'm the level what I don't know now when asking, but still is a European level. Should we have some kind of that, or how we get the students the sort of the classifications? Because at least in Finland we have them and the Finnish ones, but what we should use now is a European level, or should, sorry, it might be a tricky one, but I just try to put this to the teaching level, that what we should use.
It sounds like something that could be addressed by a collaboration of the individual groups involved. I mean, right now students could directly access that material and start working on it, but it sounds like you want something that's a little more organized as a package.
I can do a recap of what I learned today. And what I learned today is that the format will be expressed as 6 FIRE implementation guides and IHE also. And when you create an implementation guide, some of the elements that you use are coded elements. So whenever you have a coded element, you can bind it, like we learned from this gentleman here, to some specific set of codes. So what you need to do is actually do that implementation guide and then teach your implementers. This is how you relate your internal information in your system to this SNOMED or LOINC code, and this is what you can include. So you will use SNOMED or LOINC, maybe, but that depends on the implementation guide development. When you finish the implementation guide, you will know for each, depending on the consensus of the group that is creating the implementation guide, which codes you will use for every coded element. That's part of the process. But it's a part of the process of creating the implementation guide. Implementers, on the other hand, received the implementation guide and said, oh, I need to code my internal code, unless I'm using SNOMED and LOINC internally, to the code that this European guide required for me. So that's what you need to teach your implementers. It's different from how to teach the clinicians and the patients, but for implementers, which are my turf, you need to tell them this is what you have in your system and this is what you need to transmit and these are your options. And sometimes the options are not a list of codes, are just something that it's created through this algebra, through this dynamic list of codes. That's what my comment.
Thank you very much, Diego. Unfortunately, our time is running basically over, but if Marjorie, Eza, and Peter, if you have just 1-2 very short messages to the audience, just to wrap it up, please take the chance.
Would you like to? This has been very helpful for us. If you have questions about education needs, we would love to hear them. You can go to the website and reach out to us, Eza or I directly. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Marjorie.
This collaboration between SNOMED International and Regenstrief really just feels like the next level of terminology, and I would love to see other code systems move forward in that way as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Peter.
There is a richness there that's available on the website, and we welcome any question you may have, and we are there to support you in any type of question you may have to clarify your path going forward.
Thanks, Eza. Wonderful. And I'm really hoping that indeed, as you said, Peter, we're moving towards some new era in the standards and interoperability, where interoperability will indeed be interoperable, and standards will indeed be comprehensive, but not just comprehensive, but adopted worldwide and speaking together. Most importantly, talking together like SNOMED International and Regenstrief are. I'm sure we will be benefiting from communication and collaboration with both institutions throughout basically the lifetime of this project, being among the most important semantic standards in use in health care. And I'm sure we will have the pleasure of thank you, ladies and gentlemen, again at our project meetings. Thank you very much. Thank you for the audience, to the audience, and back to you, our master of disaster, to close the day.
Okay, well, just 1 second to say thank you very much. No, you can go. Thank you very much for our, that's your watch, for everyone to stay up to such a long day of work. We deserve a break. And then those of you that will join for dinner, and I hope all of you feel welcome for doing that, that is good. The informal dinner is around, Portuguese time zone, which means 7:30 or 7:45 or 7:50. So there's a Portuguese time zone for dinner, only for dinner. The rest, as you saw, we tried to keep up on time on the program. But we're not as strict. So feel free to go back to your hotel if it's nearby. Feel also free to stay around and use Wi-Fi or whatever, or just send some emails out, or just do nothing. The dinner is in another building, so that you get to know Iscte progressively. So this time is in a building that you literally need to go out of these set of buildings, and it's right in front. But you have the map on the mini program. So I will tell you which one it is, because I always mix it up as well. It's building A. Okay, so you go into building A and you just go up, and you get to the restaurant. There's nothing difficult about it, or you just ask it. So either now or later you can go. To close the day, first, let me say thank you for all the people that presented and prepared presentations. I think we have more answers, well, more questions than answers. We ended up with a very simplistic view. So Diego, thanks. Yeah, just get 6 implementing 6 IGs and teach everyone about them, and that's it. But anyway, I'll respond to that, which is people might need to know what is an implementing, what is IG, because not everyone does, but that's a good synthesis. Now, this actually, I want to pick on this note to pick on Diego, something that I really like to do, but because there is a dependency here, which is interesting, which is, yes, we need to prepare to deliver contents that already exist, such as the ones that were just mentioned by SNOMED and LOINC. But there are other contents that are still in the making in the next 1.5 years by the Commission and working groups. So then we will need to adjust that. So tomorrow we'll continue our conversations and enjoy, have fun, and see you later. Ciao, ciao.